I'm still seeing water coming out right here, and that's exactly when a lot of guys get complacent, and that's when the trouble starts. I'm telling you, because it happened to me. One day I thought, the system's pretty much clean, no big deal. Result? Overheating in the middle of rush hour traffic in Houston, 95 degrees, AC blasting, and me staring at the dashboard like it was a horror movie. And all because I didn't do the radiator service right. Today, we're doing it the right way. We're going to flush the coolant and get the system absolutely spotless, the kind of job that gives you real peace of mind. We're even going to install a small inline glass filter that, on top of looking really sharp, lets us spot debris before it becomes a problem. I started the process last night because if you want a job done right, you don't rush it. First, we drained the old fluid, and at this point it was less coolant and more just sad-colored water. No real protective properties left, basically just tired dye. We did a first flush with straight tap water, no chemical cleaner yet. Surprisingly, no heavy gunk came out, which is a good sign the system's in decent shape. Still, I'm not taking any chances. We ran that flush 2 more times before adding the radiator cleaner. Then we added the cleaner, fired up the engine, and let it reach proper operating temperature. On super common cars here in the States, your Toyota Camry, your Chevy Malibu, even a Volkswagen Jetta 2.0, that means waiting for the cooling fan to kick on and the thermostat to open up correctly. Only then does the chemical actually circulate through the whole system. After that, I did 3 complete drains to get rid of any leftover residue and foam from the cleaner. No leaving that stuff in there and hoping for the best. Yeah, it happens. And it's never cheap when it does. Right now the system's got nothing but tap water in it because when you're flushing out impurities, plain water is fine for that job, but that water doesn't stay in there. Now we're going to drain it completely and fill it with about 1.3 gallons of distilled water. Since this is a smaller system, about 1.6 gallons total capacity. In this case, I didn't pull the main hoses because the overall condition looked good. I checked for dryness, cracks, any sign of leaks. Everything's solid. Here in the States, in hot climates like Phoenix or Dallas, hoses take a real beating, so you always want to give them a close look. Don't just glance at them. We also did a pressure test on the cooling system. I put in about 14 psi and let it sit for over 20 minutes. It held steady, and that's a great sign. That means no hidden leaks waiting to trash your engine down the road. Then we tested the radiator cap. I set it to hold at 14 psi as well, and noticed it dropped a little, and that's not a small thing. Don't let anyone tell you it is. That cap has to seal perfectly. If it can't hold proper pressure, the boiling point drops, and your engine starts running hot before it should. What did I do? I pulled the connections again, applied a little sealer lubricant from the test kit, and confirmed the issue was simply that it wasn't seating right. Tightened everything up properly, and we were good to go. And here's something a lot of guys forget. The cooling system is just as critical as the oil, especially in affordable, long-lasting cars like a Toyota Corolla or a Chevy Sonic, which run anywhere from about $20,000 to $25,000 new, depending on the trim. The mechanicals are tough, but they're not bulletproof. These are simple, reliable, fuel-efficient 1.5 or 1.6L engines. But if you let them overheat, the repair bill is going to cost you a whole lot more than whatever you thought you were saving by skipping maintenance. A good cooling system keeps your temps stable, improves fuel economy, protects your water pump, your thermostat, and in heavy stop-and-go traffic, it even helps your transmission run in healthier conditions. So it's not just pretty green water, it's protection, it's longevity, and it's not getting stranded on the highway headed to the beach with the whole family staring at you like you personally designed the engine. If you're part of the Vroomly Auto community, you already know we don't just talk to hear ourselves talk. Drop a like right now, because you know this content is worth it. And if you haven't done it yet, no worries. When you see how clean and truly protected we leave this coolant, you'll hit that like button before the video's even over. Look, I left it just a hair above 14 psi and it's not moving. That means the cap is sealing exactly like it should. When the pressure holds steady, you know the system is healthy. And on a car that runs every single day under the Arizona sun or in the never-ending traffic of Los Angeles, that peace of mind is pure gold. Now comes the smart part, getting as much tap water out as possible before we put the distilled water in. To do that, I'm going to disconnect this return hose, which also doubles as an air bleed for the system. I already loosened the clamp, and since this line sits lower than the reservoir, the moment you tip it, the water starts flowing out on its own. Gravity doing its thing. I'll point it down so it drains out completely. Meanwhile, let's get the refill ready. I'm going to reuse the same spring clamp. Yep, the same one. I already know somebody's going to say swap it out for a screw clamp, but if the original clamp is in good shape, it works just fine. The issue isn't reusing it, it's putting it back in the wrong spot. Look at how it leaves a mark on the hose. That's exactly where it needs to go back. A trick almost nobody talks about, a thin coat of silicone grease on the outside, right where the clamp seats. Why? So it slides better when you close it and cinches down evenly. Better seal, and you're not chewing up the hose. It's a small detail, but in mechanics, details are what separate the guy who's winging it from the guy who actually knows what he's doing. The idea I used here was to temporarily adapt a longer hose from the T-fitting to make a gentle curve without kinking it. Original hoses, like the ones on a Toyota Corolla or a Chevy Sonic, are designed for their specific routing. If you force them, they collapse when the heat hits them. So we make this modification just for the bleeding process, and then everything goes right back where it belongs. No problem. Alright, now here's the good part, the concentrated coolant additive. I'm going to leave that hose open so that while I'm adding the new coolant, the old water keeps flowing out. That way, we're pushing as much plain water out of the system as possible. I start pouring in the concentrated antifreeze. The right coolant, and this matters, doesn't just turn your water a pretty pink. It protects against corrosion, lubricates the water pump, and keeps your temp stable even on long highway runs. That's critical if you've got a naturally aspirated 1.6L sedan that likes to rev. At first, it's still coming out clear. Pure water. That's a good sign. We're displacing it correctly. Second quart, still clear. And then, there it is. It starts coming out pink. That's the mixture taking over. That means the concentrate is already circulating through the block and the radiator. I add a little more, about 1.5 quarts total so far. So what's next? Now we close the system up, top it off with distilled water to hit the right ratio, ideally 50-50 for our climate here. Fire up the engine, let the thermostat open up, and keep an eye out for any air bubbles. We're also going to check idle stability, fan activation, and temperature behavior on the gauge. Because this isn't just about the coolant looking clean. It's about the engine running relaxed, fuel economy staying where it should, the water pump not taking a beating, and your car, whether it's a Corolla, a Sonic, or even a Jetta with some miles on it, being able to keep rolling a lot more miles without hitting you with one of those surprises that cleans out your wallet. We're not putting lipstick on this system. We're leaving it genuinely protected. Alright, now we're going to fire the car up and let everything mix the way it should. The engine's going to do its thing, the thermostat's going to open up, and the concentrated coolant is going to blend with the distilled water right inside the block. Then we're going to measure the actual concentration with a refractometer. No guessing here. If it comes in below 40%, we use a syringe to pull a little out of the reservoir and add more concentrate until we're in the ideal range, 40% to 50% maximum. For the climate here in the South and Southwest, think Texas, Arizona, Florida, that ratio protects against corrosion and keeps temps stable, even in heavy stop-and-go traffic. Before the engine gets up to full temp, I want to talk to you about the filter. I'm using a small filter because this system is relatively clean. If your engine has thick sludge, basically built-up rust and scale, don't use a small filter because it'll clog fast and can restrict flow. In those cases, you do a deep flush first. I'm testing this filter out. I picked it up online and I'm still evaluating it before I recommend it on Vroomly Auto. There are other models I've already tested, including some we used on a Golf a while back that do a really solid job catching fine particles. There are also reusable metal filters that work great if the system is already in good shape. The important thing is choosing the right size based on the actual condition of your system, not just because it looks cool. With the engine running, we check right away for any leaks. Don't wait until it's boiling. Look at the connections, the clamps, and the bottom of the radiator. I saw a small drop a minute ago, but it was just moisture left over from the installation. Temperatures starting to climb, 135 degrees Fahrenheit, all normal. Keep watching. And always check underneath the car too. Sometimes everything looks perfect up top and you've got an ugly surprise waiting for you down below. Now we let it reach operating temperature. On a lot of common sedans, the electric cooling fan typically kicks in somewhere around 212 to 215 degrees Fahrenheit. That's completely normal. Don't panic when you see that number. It's right within the system's design parameters. There it is. Fan just kicked on. Now we watch the reservoir level. When the thermostat opens, sometimes the level drops a little because the coolant starts circulating through the whole system. If it drops too much, we top it off. If it holds steady, that means the air bleed went correctly. This moment right here is the real test. This is where you find out if the job was actually done right, or if it just looked good from the outside. And we're not here to make it look good. We're here to make it work right, mile after mile, no surprises. Now we hunt for leaks. No getting complacent. If not a single drop shows up, I'm going to let the fan cycle 2 or 3 times to confirm the system is stable. Look, there it went off. Normally it shuts down around 194 degrees in Fahrenheit, and the temp can still drop a little more after that. That's a good sign. The cycle is working exactly like it should. We let it cool down a bit. Still warm, obviously, but now it's safe to open the cap carefully. Now we measure with the refractometer, because we don't work by eyeball here. And before somebody jumps in with, "Hey buddy, clean that reservoir with acid and aluminum and it'll look brand new." Yes, that method cleans it, but it creates a strong chemical reaction, releases fumes, and spikes the temperature significantly. This reservoir has an internal level sensor, a small metal rod that detects when the coolant gets low. If you do an aggressive chemical clean, you can damage that sensor or warp the original cap from the excess heat. And a damaged cap means bad pressure, and bad pressure means problems. That's why I decided to replace the reservoir instead of taking that risk. All right, let's take the reading. Right now, it's showing just above 14 degrees Fahrenheit on the freeze point scale. What does that mean? According to the chart, we're sitting around 20% concentration. Yeah, it looks pink and pretty, but it's well below the minimum you actually want. A pretty color doesn't protect your engine, so we're going to add more concentrated coolant until we hit the right range, because there's a big difference between looking right and being right, and the engine always knows the truth. There we go. Now that's where it needs to be. Check out that reading. We're sitting at approximately negative 15 degrees RKR freeze point protection. According to the chart, that puts us right between 45 and 46% concentration, exactly where we want it for the climate we're dealing with here. Real protection, not just a pretty color. And this is something a lot of guys just don't get. Coolant is not paint to make your reservoir look nice. A few minutes ago it was pink, sure, but it was only at 20%. That does not protect properly against corrosion, and it doesn't keep the boiling point where it needs to be. That's why you need the right tool, a refractometer, or even a hydrometer. Measuring is the difference between thinking you know and actually knowing. And in mechanics, thinking costs money. With this ratio, the system is now doing its job the way it should. Better thermal control, protection for the water pump, less rust and scale buildup, and better stability on the highway, especially in the cars we drive every day here in the States. The ones that sit in rush hour for hours or rack up long miles in serious heat. So, mission accomplished, system clean, bled, properly pressurized, and with the exact right mix. If this content helped you out, hit that like button right now. If you've got questions or want to share your own experience, drop it in the comments and let's talk it through. Here at Vroomly Auto, we don't just talk about cars, we understand them. See you in the next one.